Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. We have more or less 25 minutes, right? Something like that? Okay, I will try to stay within the time.
Actually, we have 5 more minutes
Okay.
because we are starting a few minutes earlier. So
yeah, so we could try to have a little time for maybe some questions if you have. So
sure.
Yeah. So the Kunstsilo is a project that we've been working on for the last 8-9 years. So it's a long process, as you know, all the complex buildings. It's a collaboration between 3 architectural studios based in Barcelona. So it's Mendoza Partida, Bax, and Mestres Wåge, which is our company. And I've been the project leader for the architect group in this project. This is the team that did the competition together back in 2016. It was an open competition with over 100 participants, and we were so lucky to win it. This starting point, of course, is this grain silo. It's initially the first part of the building is built in 1935. It's designed by important functionalist architects from Norway called Korsmo and Aasland. They were like members of Siam, kind of within the Norwegian scene at that time. They were very, very important between the wars. Special for the building is this, the first building is in Norway. It's built with the cylinders are built with what's it called, sliding formwork. So that was also a groundbreaking technology at the point at that point in Norway. In 39, the building was there were added 15 more cylinders. So the first step you see there was 15 cylinders and the storage building and the staircase volume. And then they added this one in 1939, the 15 more cylinders, and they extended this storage building on the shorefront in 1956. So it's a building that's built in steps, and quite important for that, of course, this is the structural joint. So in a way, structurally, there are 2 buildings, not one. These extensions were done without the original architects. So, but within what we call the kind of original grammatics that was established in the project from the architects. And then when we did the competition, it looked like this. So there were some additions from the 80s that were just decided to be removed to bring it back to this moment where the building looked more or less like the original design of the architects. We studied in the competition quite closely this, trying to understand the language of the original designers, but also, of course, to understand the structure, how it functioned, and so on. What we found, of course, is that these architects, although they were kind of functionalists, they had a classical education when it comes to proportions, composition, and so. So you can read, for example, in this building, you can see that this storage building is half the height of the cylinders, for example. No? You can see that the structure is very clear. All of these windows, for example, are placed according to the structural grid of the cylinders again. So everything is like in proportion of 2 to 3, 1 to 2, and so on. Almost like a Palladian way to think. Then you can see also that the structural load-bearing system, that the cylinders are carried by a set of pillars that are founded in the bottom of the building. But this floor was rather open, but it had these pilastras that came down to the ground. Again, we see here, you see this structural grid here that comes from the meeting point between the cylinders. And they are not separate cylinders, of course, they are woven together. So in this point, they are only 12 to 15 centimeters of concrete with only one layer of reinforcement. So of course, it's a building that did not comply with today's demands for structural safety. And again, you see these kind of small details that this architect worked with, this kind of shadow joint over there, which is this staircase and elevator tower is half the width of this, and there you have the shadow joint. So again, it's not arbitrary, it's thought within the system of composition. So the task of the competition was to make not only building the art silo, where it was going to be a contemporary museum, but also organize all of this space behind the silo for a cultural quarter for the city of Kristiansand. We decided to continue this idea from the silo of the kind of volumetric clarity. So we added a volume on the backside of the silo that I will come back to accommodate for all the program of for the program of the museum that was larger than the original building. And then it's like this, we made a kind of cluster of building volumes that comes down to the scale of this future development that was going to be built here called the Canal City. So we made a kind of a negotiation between the dimension of the silo and down to the neighboring village. And then we pushed these new volumes, we pushed them to create in-betweens, urban spaces of more intimate quality. There's a lot of wind here, it's quite harsh climate. So we create some places that are more protected from the wind and some that are more exposed, and a variation in the kind of public space of Kristiansand. And this is a culture school that we also designed in the end. So here you can see this this idea of the culture school and the museum sharing, also having their entrances in a shared public space. Again, here you see the section through that. So we have the street, we have an interior shared space, street, interior plaza, if you like, and then the more windy, but also more sunny shorefront. This idea of collaboration, you can see, so we made very public ground floors here, both in the culture school and in the museum. And the museum is nowadays open for free, so you can access the ground floor for free. There's a cafe, there's the shop, of course, but also this large central space, which I will come back to, that functions as an indoor public arena for the city of Kristiansand. So it's more than a museum, it's also a kind of public living room for the city. And here you can see this plaza over there, where we put emphasis is that we wanted then we push this volume back, we get 4 cylinders here that come all the way down to the public space. So we wanted to experience the cylinder to come all the way down to the ground. Our ideas of composition also work on the same systems of the original design. You can see this volume there is half of the volume from there to the top, and so on. So we continued to talk slightly in the same language as the original designers had done. No? So it's a kind of grammatic, if you can say that a building has a grammatic language or a system. We try to develop on that grammar. So this is our new volume on the back side of the building, and this is a reconstruction of the storage building. So we reconstructed with kind of having some of the same elements, but they are in complete different places, but within the same system. Nobody has really noticed. So this is interesting that the memory plays tricks with us. So it's not like an exact reconstruction of what was there, but it's elements that preserve the memory of the place. We have opened up also, so that's one of our architectural concepts that is more contemporary, was to open up, since this building was built for storage of grain. Grain don't need view, grain don't need to communicate between inside and outside. We introduced this system of stripes of glass that are kind of our new relational elements between inside, outside, to get light in, but also to get contact between the visitor in the urban space and the interior spaces. And here you can see this idea. And in this, for example, in this staircase tower, then when you move up, this is the foyers of the museum. You move up and down in this. You always come to a space before you go into the museum where you also see back towards the city. So you know where you are, which level you are on in relation to the city, but also in relation to the interior. So it's a kind of system for helping you to orient. And this at night, of course, becomes a lighthouse. Also, this is the restaurant on the top, which we finished the cylinder with an event space with a glazed fence around it. Okay. Yeah, here you see these elements that we reconstructed. We used the same material. It's a white brick with a thin plaster, we call it. But it's a traditional way of building with brick in industrial buildings in Norway. So this is the shorefront promenade with this new housing area, and then a bridge over to the silo harbor at night. Our most important concept for the interior space was to convert the silo into a kind of sculpture that everything is circling around and over and under, and so all the time you move in relation to this silo. The silo is the character of this building, of course, and to experience this in a completely new way. So we were rather conservative maybe on our reform or our work on the exterior of the building, but in the interior we thought that we needed to do something radical to be able to convert this into a functional museum. And that we were thinking, of course, in the competition to kind of allow or continue to have these cylinders going as they are, and to make openings and make kind of exhibition spaces inside. But in reality, those spaces would be like labyrinthic. So we would have a museum with a labyrinth in the center. And that notion made us think, but what if we do the opposite? We make a very open space in the center that turns the silo into the element that connects everything. So we decided to do something radical there. We cut out this basilica-like space in the silo, and we allow the cylinders to be open up to the top. And you can see our cut is in the in the halfway up, like so, still working with this idea that the original architects had of proportion. And then we can organize our museum around that. So the museum movement, you move vertically in the staircase, of course, and then you have this movement around and over and through the central basilica-like space. And here you can see it's constructed. So you see these are the museum parts. So now we are in the foyer looking towards this is the white box. So we have like a space inside the space also, which allow us to get some really high space inside there, but also to move on top and have some spaces very close to the cylinders. But still the idea is that you experience this as part of a larger, something hanging in a larger space, right? Yeah. It's a typical floor plan. So we have this. This is the ground floor. So here we have this idea of 2 entrances. So you remember we wanted this to be like a public plaza. So instead of having like one main entrance, we made 2, so that you have from the most important urban space, you have entrance to the museum. So you can move in, move through, go out on the other side. Maybe you meet someone there, and then the idea is that this becomes very low threshold public space. So this is the ground floor you see there. The other thing that you can see here is how we have worked in our new addition buildings, always working with the grid of the original building. So these are steel structure buildings that we have built here and here. They are following the original grid of the original of this that comes from the cylinder. No? And we also made our ceiling elements, everything within a system related to that grid. Yeah, here you see also the not arbitrarily placed staircase. Here you get the experience of moving up and down in the museum with a circular staircase placed inside of the cylinder. So you get very close to the experience, the concrete. Yeah, and again, this is the foyer. Visitor in the museum will move through these spaces that are diagonally placed so that you get really engaged. It's not like an axial system, it's more like a diagonal system always, to get you engaged both in the experience, rich experience of architecture, but also get engaged in each space for exhibition. So it's a system we developed for this museum, sometimes in contact with the silo and sometimes out of contact with the silo. Silo is a very strong character. So you needed also spaces that were completely removed from it. Or, for example, art that have a difficult communication with this kind of strong character. Here you can see the diagonal through with the art also being exposed. This was after the opening exhibition. Yeah, and this idea of two types, let's say almost like 2 types of art. We had the kind of art that needed like a white box space that we have accommodated for. But then there are some artworks that really can work together with the silo. This is an example of a piece of art that is an original Norwegian building from the mountains that an artist brought first to the Pompidou Center in the 70s, and now it has its home here. So you have this communication between these 2 buildings that have been kind of radically removed from their original purpose, right? Yeah, some art space in relation to silo, some out of contact with the silo. Some completely removed, right? Yeah, I have to check time. Okay. So, of course, this is central space, the silo hall that it's been called eventually. Of course, to cut out, we completely changed the structural system of the silos. So this is drawings from our competition proposal where we try to understand how the forces completely change, no? So we try to understand it like this, that we had to bring the forces down in the facade. So we need to reinforce the foundation along the facade. And then these cylinders on top, the 30 cylinders, we could function like a kind of structural beam, right? So all of this, we could understand it like one beam that has like a space beam consisting of cylinders that takes the forces down in the facade. And then if it's a beam, then we needed a diaphragma in the bottom of the beam to take the stretch forces. And we needed a diaphragma in the top to take the pressure forces. This concept needed to be changed eventually, and it gave us some kind of radical and difficult moments in the process when we discovered that we couldn't do it like this because of the danger of the shear forces produced, the shear forces creating deformation in the cylinder, and then we could risk that some part of the original concrete could fall down, right? So what we ended with in the end is to make a very strong new diaphragma in the bottom part, and all the cylinders on top are sitting on that, on top. So here you can see we have made this structural reinforcement there, you see. Large-scale post-stressed concrete beams going from side to side above the original concrete. So the structural system, in a way, is a new jacket of concrete on the outside, which is primary structure, together with a grid of beams that goes in both directions. That are also post-stress. And then we have a little bit of original concrete hanging down and a little bit of original concrete and only original concrete on the inside of the building. So here you see from the construction, this is a new structural concrete, like primary structure for the building, where we used the old one almost like a formwork. And then we have used the sliding formwork, you remember, also for this new structural concrete on the facade. And then they cut through this. After they had built that, they cut through in two directions through the cylinder. It was very difficult, very impressive work on the construction site. And then here you see they started to build the reinforcement for the beams that are going to cross through the buildings. This is before they put the post-stress cable. And then when they had casted this, that they had to cast one at a time, it took 2 or 3 months to make 2 of them. Then we could cut the bottom part. So everything here was done before the cut was made. So here you see the important moment in the process where they're starting to cut away the interior of our basilica, if you like. And this is what it looked like. The fantastic moment from the construction site. And here you can see this. So you have I don't know, we've been trying to express it like this, that there are, when we talk about expression, there's a kind of series of duets in this building. So there's a duet between, you see, this is the new concrete that is support for the old, that is formwork in a way. And the old concrete is always on the inside. And then you can see these new beams, structural system going in. So there's a kind of duet between the expression of the old and the new all the time. And here you can see this also from the construction, this new structural system of beams in 2 directions. And of course, it wasn't that simple. This is the structural joint, you remember. It's 2 buildings, not 1. So here is there's no structural connection. It's just a shelf with a neoprene what's that called? I don't remember, but it's like sitting, one part is sitting on the other part. And here you see, we like this in the end, this idea of square inside the circle become very interesting. And here this, this duet again, no? Square with a circle. Or the duet between our new architectural elements and these very expressive original concrete walls. No? So here you see the kind of wall full of traces. Again, you see these new elements that we added that are very, very simple in almost industrial kind of architecture, in contrast to this very expressive original concrete walls. And the cuts are expressed, everything. So this was the slab in the bottom of the cylinders, you remember? And then we left the walls more or less as they were, but of course they are, we treated the surface so that it looked like we had cared for it. So it's not like we just found it like this. We worked a little bit on the color of the wall. So there's a kind of cosmetic operation also, where we worked on site to find out how much we fix and how much we leave as part of the story of the walls. Yeah, this looking up. We have this light system that can be regulated, and we have some of these cylinders that have a glass top that you can actually walk on top. But you also get the contact with the sky from the silo hall, which is this. Yeah, and I think that was more or less for 25 minutes. So if we have time for some questions, I can be happy to answer.
Thank you, Magnus. I think we actually do. Anyone, any questions or comments?
Yes, I have one question. I see you preserved a lot of the original concrete structures, but I was just wondering if you reconstructed the surface, or was it like still kind of perfect? Because I mean that's the seaside, so I'm thinking of chlorides exposure, so that looks like a good state, good condition of the surface of the concrete surface. So I was just wondering if you reconstructed any surface of.
Yeah, we of course there was a lot of evaluation of this. The concrete was actually in quite good condition, even though the building had been like empty for I think 15 years when we started. It was painted on the outside. Probably the paint had protected it quite well from water entering, but of course it was full of cracks. The coverage is very little coverage, and it was humid, and we had some oxidation in the reinforcement steel. So the interior of the building was just fixed with we fixed all the cracks with what's it called, epoxy fillings. And then it was a large discussion if we were going to take out the salts with I don't know what it's called in English, but it's like decalcification process where you put electricity, to the steel. But it was decided not to do that in the end because we found out that probably if we just protected the building from the outside, it would dry out. And that seems to function. And we had, of course, a team of experts that had worked with similar projects before. And we found that this was the simplest way to do it. And it also, of course, saved a lot of money. On the outside, we have, and maybe this drawing shows. So, of course, we have added several layers here. So there's a new layer of concrete. and this is on the inside, so that's 20 to 25 centimeter, which was built with this sliding formwork. And then it had to be adjusted. It was not easy because the building was not straight, you know, it's not completely vertical. There was like a deviation of 10 centimeter from the bottom to the top. And sometimes it was also slightly curved, you know, so it's not perfect, of course. But with this deviation of 5 centimeter thickness, we managed to even out more or less that. So you can see here the new concrete layer there that protects the original building from the outside. And then we have an additional layer of light concrete, like beton, which is built. We wanted it to be not the ventilated facade because we thought it was completely wrong when this is kind of a brickwork kind of building. So we used light concrete with then a plaster finish that protects it from the water and everything. And the light concrete gives, it's very easy to shape, so we can make the curve shape, and it also insulates a little bit. So that's the way we've been working with the kind of changing of climate. Huh? Seems to be working well.
Yeah, quite a clever solution. Magnus, originally the building we couldn't tell from the picture from the time. Was it a painted or was just fair face concrete?
Was painted on the outside.
Ah, okay.
Several
So it's
layers.
always paint. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
It was
Okay.
also painted. It was it's a funny photo from the. I didn't bring it today, but this photo from the war. It was during the occupation. It was painted black, so that the planes couldn't see it at night because, of course, the grain storage was very important. But then it snowed. The only thing you could see was the silo. No, but it was painted, but on the inside it was not. And what we also discovered, we did not have to put any, that was quite strange, we did not have to put any dust binding product on the inside because it was like the grain, it has some oils. So it had been sort of impregnated the surface of the concrete. So we didn't need to do very much with it. No dust binding product, nothing, because it had already this. And we think that it was not any product that was put on. It comes from the grain itself.
Interesting.
Mm.
We have one more question. Francesco, go ahead and ask the question.
Hi, I'm Francesco, and I want just to ask you, how did you manage to design the climate control system? Because with all this verticality, all this concrete, I see the outer shell of the exterior facade, but how was the process? How did you keep the climate warm or cool in the structure?
Yeah, we have, of course, a contemporary museum have very, very high demands on climate for the conservation of the art, no? But what we did was to decide very early on that we needed to have several climate zones. So I can maybe show this in my floor plan. So, and also the other thing with the contemporary museum, of course, is that it has a lot of infrastructure for lighting, for everything, and we don't want this infrastructure to interfere with this space. We want it to be as clean as possible from tubes and all these kind of things. So what we decided to do was to say that there's a climate zone in the center here, which has lower demands, which is all the area of the silo. And then we have these two buildings that lean towards the silo, and there we can have complete control of the climate. And each one of these buildings get their own ventilation system. So there's a ventilation system on this side, there's a ventilation system on this side. And we ventilate the silo from the system on this side, so we don't have to cross in any point. And then for fire, which is also, of course, a challenge in this kind of high space in a complex building, we have fire ventilators in the top of the silo that will start in case of fire, and then we pull the smoke out of this high space in case of fire and out through some grills that we have in the facade. So it wasn't like obvious, but we made the kind of decentralized system, thinking it like several climates inside the building.